Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
20th Century Fox presents a tribute to anyone who has ever been overworked, underpaid, and pushed to the edge by an ungrateful boss.
I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins.
9 to 5 is over. It's time to kidnap the boss.
They arrive promptly at 9, because if they're not on time, they know they'll get the sack. But before they begin the daily grind, the boss takes his cup black. They remember each date, make sure he's not late, and keep everything organized. They reserve tables for brunch or a 3-martini lunch while they dine on burgers and fries.
This road.
They listen to all his problems. They do their best to please. And even if they run the show, he gets paid for their ideas.
Great work.
And so long as he's alive, from 9 to 5, they'll take it all they can.
This road. Come in here.
But what will go on when the light finally dawns that it's time to get back at that man?
This road.
Now, I know you've never seen it before. You've never even heard of it. This is the first time you've ever heard of 9 to 5. It's a cultural anomaly.
The cultural, like, wow, what was going on in 1980?
Yeah.
I thought I had seen this movie.
Wait a minute. Straight up. Are you telling me I was joking? Like, you haven't seen this movie? You hadn't?
No, I knew what the movie was, and I had seen scenes. Like, this is definitely something I was around when my mom probably rented it or something, and I saw scenes, particularly stuff with Dabney Coleman being, tied up, kidnapped, all that sort of stuff. Like, those are things that I remember.
Okay.
But the film itself,
that's
I was
unfortunate.
like, no, I definitely hadn't seen this before. So it was pretty new to me, which was great.
Was it?
Tell me
how great it was.
I like new experiences, especially when they're like this, because the comedy worked really well. It was, I think, very sharp for its time. I think the way the script was constructed was really clever. I had just endless fun with it. The casting was impeccable. Like, everything about this worked for me. It was just a top-notch experience. I had so much fun with it.
Oh, I'm relieved to hear you say that, because sometimes your enthusiasm is subdued enough that I'm not sure where the quibbles are going to come in. And for me, this movie is super delightful. I am thrilled that it holds up. And in fact, I think that is the saddest commentary I can make on this movie in particular, given what it's about, is that, my God, it really holds up. It doesn't feel, I mean, the areas that feel dated are generally like technological, right? And
like copy machines,
like culturally, and chords on phones. Like, there are gags that rely on chords that aren't connected to phones, and so those are some things that don't hold up. But culturally, this movie is still whip smart. The humor does not, for me, the humor doesn't get in the way of the message. In fact, I think the humor is gentle enough that it allows a wider range of audience to adapt to it. What do you think?
Well, that was a big, I think, a pleasant surprise for the filmmakers at the time when they made this and released it, because they kind of knew that there would be an audience with secretaries and working women who were kind of in this situation, who could really identify with our 3 protagonists of the film. But what they weren't expecting is that they would have such a strong showing across the board of people. And they realized that largely it kind of anybody fits the bill of people who are working under somebody that makes them feel kind of unappreciated. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you can be in that sort of situation. And then, of course, there are so many elements in the film that are just so much fun that it was very appealing to younger viewers too. It just really kind of hit out of the park for everybody, and it ended up working really well. And like you said, sadly, it still feels pretty relevant, which is amazing to look at this film and go, gosh, everything going on in here is still struggles that people are facing. And there are shifts as to what issues are taking place. But I mean, equal pay is still an issue. And there are still a lot of, situations that people are dealing with, especially as the working world has become more corporatized, and the corporate mentality has kind of overtaken kind of the big boss mentality. And I think there's just a lot of situations where just people are viewed as workhorses. And so super relevant. And I think the humor helps deliver the message in a way where it's allowing it to be fun. And so it doesn't end up feeling preachy. And I think that's really one of the sharpest things that Jane Fonda and her producing partner decided to do, is shift it from a dramatic script early on in the writing process to something that was a comedy, allowing for it to be a smarter way to kind of tackle the subject.
Right. Because we have that other movie, right? We already have Norma Ray, we have the other labor films. This was an anomalous thing at the time. And I think to your point about Fonda, that, she'd said, I am super sensitive to anything that smacks of the soapbox or lecturing the audience. And I think that's an interesting thing about this movie. I never got the sense as I'm watching this movie that it was preaching to me, that it was trying to teach me something overt that I'm going to walk away and be able to recite chapter and verse what this movie is saying that is so resonant in these areas. And it felt like a much more intimate form of comedy, that these were these three women who were going through their story, and I'm bearing witness to it, not in a way that they're trying to teach me something. They're genuinely funny people who are going through genuinely difficult times in all three areas of their lives, and I'm absorbing it less than being taught lessons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why stories like this can be so successful. And I mean, I think another thing you brought up is the whole Jane Fonda angle. She certainly wasn't a stranger to projects with political messages.
Sure.
I mean, coming off of Coming Home, even just a few years before, it definitely was partial to kind of stronger messages. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that she had been an activist and knew kind of how it worked and what would what people would listen to and what they would roll their eyes at. And I think that she decided, you know what, I've done some of those where I'm being a little more overt. Let's pull this one back and see how people react to it. And I think, the numbers don't lie. I think it was largely something that people really clicked with and really enjoyed and appreciated. And it did end up kind of leading a movement to a certain extent. I mean, I think it was already kind of underway, but I think having a film like this as kind of an anthem with a song that, was the anthem, really, I mean, it allowed kind of for this push to start creating some of these programs that they mention in the movie that really weren't practiced, like daycare at work or, work share, things like that. And I think that it allowed a place for that conversation to start and actually push for change.
The things that we sort of bear witness to in terms of the issues that these women are facing, I think that's the part that makes the commentary on the movie sad today, 40 years later, that we're still, we witness it through a comedic lens. What today is straight up sexual assault. I mean, they end up, wrestling one another on, he's wrestling over her. His come-ons to Dorlee are, they're funny in the moment because she is a strong character. But the act itself is, we've got we've had 40 years of too much of it and stronger support networks that are bringing more and more of these stories to light. And
yeah, this is a comedy about Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, it really is. And this is, so those stories, I find those elements of the film challenging to watch, even as I'm laughing at what they're trying to do. And if there is ever a guy who's more made to play this role, is Dabney Coleman. I mean, he's incredible at walking the line between, being smarmy and maintaining that sort of comedic, antagonist role in a way that makes him still, a bad guy, but I don't hate him. He's a bad guy. I want him to get his comeuppance, but I'm not enraged by him. And yet, all of these Harvey Weinstein stories that have come out make it increasingly difficult to maintain that sensibility.
Well, but I think what this film is doing well is it's keeping that comedy tone throughout, and not just that, but it's keeping the perspective of the story. Like, we are very much seeing this story told through the perspective of these three women characters, and it's horrible and awful that he's acting this way, and it shouldn't be happening. But because of the way that it's treated, I think that the filmmakers are allowing it to happen because it's going to be answered.
Yes.
That's I think the key with any story like this is if you're going to have these situations, what are the repercussions going to be? And that's, I mean, that really is the foundation of the whole film anyway, right? We have these women who are all suffering at the hands of their boss for one reason or another. And now they put, they put these fantasies to work, and then the fantasies kind of accidentally come to life in fantastical ways. So I think that's what makes this script incredibly sharp. The fact that we see this very negative social situation happening, and it creates this, it's not right for them to kill their boss. I mean, fantasizing is one thing, but it leads down a darker road. And I think that they're constantly dealing with the idea of repercussions in this film, repercussions with what he's doing. They're going to get him. And I think Lily Tomlin starts when she doesn't get the promotion, and she's complaining to him about this other guy who's gotten it, and she's just like, I want respect and all this stuff, and that kind of really sets the ball rolling, that pushes us into this place where they're allowed to have these fantasies.
Yes, I let's talk a little bit more about how comeuppance is handled for him, because it's handled in a number of different ways, and I think really artfully in the script, and it makes it, I think, easier to handle what is, not an explicit consequence for him, right? And I think that actually makes it even better. It makes it even better because I'm one of those guys that I like it when bad guys get their due. Right. And when I see somebody doing something bad, I want to know that it's going to come around and it's going to bite him, and he's going to get his due. He's going to lose a hand. I want to feel like there have been just desserts paid. And in this movie, there aren't really just desserts paid. Like if you look at the words on the page, he's promoted to a place he doesn't want to go.
And he gets away with his crime. That he had been committing in the company.
Absolutely. He gets away with the crime. He's obviously, and at the end, he's taken away, right? He's taken away, and the elevator doors close as the boss is telling him, I don't take no for an answer. You're going to go to Brazil, and I need a guy like you in Brazil for the next couple of years. And then the post-credit or the pre-credits sequence at the end, we find out that he's actually been abducted by a Brazilian jungle tribe and never heard from again, which is level 1 comeuppance, right? This is the karmic comeuppance. It's not the explicit comeuppance. Something happened to him, and karmically he was made off with. The thing that I actually love so much is actually the second level just desserts, which is that all of the women's ideas were better than his. And when he comes back, he's about to say, this is my floor. I am going to take all of these changes that you've made, all of the flex time and the daycare and repainting everything and everything you've done, that is positive from your perspective. I'm going to undo it because I'm the boss. And then the boss comes in, and the whole reason he's taken away is because the women's ideas were in fact better than his own. And that is the more satisfying of all the things that happen, is that he is removed from the picture in a way that allows their ideas to flourish. The challenge that I have is that if I put myself in their shoes, I want them to be paid off in a more explicit way.
Sure.
And that's just me and just my deep need for that sort of retributive, my love of John Wick. I need John Wick and the dog in this movie to finish Dabney Coleman. But so all of that is a preamble to ask you, do you think they sort of soft pedal the consequences for Dabney Coleman after how awful he has been to these women all along?
It's a tricky question, because let's also keep in mind that they kidnap him and keep him locked up for 6 weeks. Granted, it's in his own house.
Yeah,
but he is. They're also committing a crime in order to try to outplay him, right? So there's a level of that that's going on, and I feel that it's. I think that the script is actually really smart in the way that it delivers the resolution, because it ends up being a resolution that sadly at the time allows the idiot man who's the boss to get away with everything that he's doing. But it puts him in a situation now where, unfortunately, he is out of the picture, and he's not going to be in a situation to be able to do anything to them anymore, or at least for 3 years while he's gone,
right.
in context of the story. And it puts them in a place where he had told the head that, this woman right here, Violet, is my right-hand person, and she's the one who kind of knows everything that's going on, and ends up kind of creating a situation inadvertently where likely Violet is now going to be kind of kept in a situation where she is now able to kind of fill in the gap. And so while they're not necessarily getting recognized for everything that they did in the film, they have now elevated themselves to a position of power behind the scenes, more or less, that is going to allow them to kind of continue moving forward in a more positive way. So it is a softer climax, and it's a softer resolution that we have here. But I think in context of the story that we have here, with business women trying to make names for themselves, it ended up being kind of a fairly smart ending. And I thought it was just kind of, without being just kind of maybe what Jane Fonda was trying to avoid, where it would be like, hey, you really are smart. Why don't you run things now? And it would have been a little too much of that kind of, yay, women can do it too, as opposed to the way that we get it.
I don't think so much that hand-wavy women are smart too. I think the movie demonstrates quite clearly that women are incredibly smart and they dominate this movie, and more women is better. What I don't think that this movie does thoroughly, and I question whether another take on this movie would have to address this differently, is the implicit versus explicit shunning of the boss, right? What we have here is the implicit, and this is the danger of, I think, the personal movie, telling the personal stories so successfully in a comedic way, to be sort of a little bit lightheanded based on the culture at the time, what we were dealing with in 1980, and the fact that there very much was a much more resonant sort of old boys club. I don't think having an explicit finger wagging, Coleman's character is going to be punished because what he did is wrong. At no point do they say in this movie what he did is wrong and he should be punished for it. And I think this movie today, if it were remade, would likely have to have an explicit, what he did was wrong and he's going to be punished for it. And I couldn't help but think, if I just finished up season 1 of The Morning Show, and The Morning Show, it very much deals with me too, in a dramatic kind of soap opera fashion. I found the final episode of The Morning Show enormously satisfying, and I was grief-stricken by it. Like, they just played it very, very well. And in this movie, in this series, I think they have a much more sort of wear it on its sleeve, what you did is wrong, and the repercussions are extensive, and dues will be paid. There is not as much of a sense of that in this movie. And I wonder, even in a comedy, if, what we're seeing right now is a swell of dues must be paid stories. I don't think that 9 to 5 could be made this way again.
Well, what could have helped the ending of this, and I think given a little more time, I think Higgins probably could have hit on it, is we have the scene, which I thought was actually real kind of clever to kind of have as the bottom point of our Act 3, when the boss, Dabney Coleman, his character has escaped his where he's been kind of tied up, and has fixed the problem that they were investigating, trying to prove that he was basically, stealing from the company and kind of creating this whole shell account with whatever it was. If what would have been a smart little twist is to have the film play the way that it does, where the boss comes in and all of this stuff happens, and then just as the boss is giving him the job in Brazil and all this sort of stuff, like something is delivered, some key piece of evidence is delivered that they look at and go, "What is this?" And it turns into that moment that the head honcho, the Sterling Hayden character of our company, now all of a sudden has the evidence and sees that Dabney Coleman was in fact, stealing money from the company. And that would be kind of that last little twist that all of a sudden would kind of shift everything, where, the women got elevated to their new position. They got their boss out of the picture. And lo and behold, it turns out that the evidence has turned up. He's guilty, and now he's going to jail. Like, that would have been kind of maybe a more successful way to kind of deal with that.
Establish a sense of criminality. That still doesn't necessarily deal with the fact that he's, the sexism and the, all the other issues that he's so overtly deals with, but it does deal with the fact that he is a bad guy and dues will be paid. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like I steamrolled over a big question, which we have been dealing with each and every week, which I think is really good, which is the Higginsness. The Higginses. What did you want to lobby for an auteur theory? The Higginality of the film. Maybe it's like Higginopia. We don't have an opia yet.
Cornucopia is the Higginopia.
The Higginopia. Higginsanopia. Oh,
none of these are winning. I guarantee you, this is not going to create a nationwide, call.
I'm making a new shirt, and all it has is Higginsanopia with an extra "nana" in it. Yeah. Is this
the kiddies will be wearing it at school? Everyone will be talking about it. They won't even know what it is. It'll just be the new word on the playground.
That's right. Is this a Colin Higgins movie?
That's a great question. This is the second film he's directed, the fourth that he has written in some form. And I feel that now that we're at this point in his career, it's his comedy style, I think, it really shines through. The style that he has of just kind of playing with just kind of all of the comedy elements in kind of the world of his stories, allowing it to have silly moments and kind of making it a little over the top and big and not necessarily what would typically be, I guess, expected, and making it feel very real and making the people feel extremely real. And while we didn't necessarily see much in Foul Play or Silver Streak, as far as kind of him kind of tackling some more interesting issues, I guess Silver Streak with the pairing of the two, but I don't know if that's really, he wasn't necessarily tackling that. Yeah. But I think you're definitely seeing from Harold and Maude to this a sense of Colin Higgins saying, you know what, there are interesting situations going on in our world, and we can create stories from these unique situations, whether it's a strange relationship and a fascination with suicide, or, women in the workplace and what sort of fantasies these secretaries might have in killing their boss. I think that it definitely, I feel like there is a comedy style that Colin Higgins has definitely been developing over these last four films.
On that point, I think it's important that we revisit our favorite segment, which is the Higginsopia trope library. Because that has been
trope Higgins.
Colin's trope corner. This, at least our conversation about his films, seem to have been sort of defined by a discussion of the tropes that we've seen either heavily leaned on in this movie or in some cases invented by his movies. What did you see in here that felt tropey?
There were a few that definitely fit in comedy tropes. I don't know if he necessarily created these ones, but that's another, I think, element of kind of the Colin Higgins humor style is playing with the tropes that are out there and allowing them to just kind of breathe, but in fun ways. In this one, we've got the mixing up the stiff trope.
This one doesn't feel like an invention to me. This feels like something the Marx Brothers did. I can't put my fingers on what it did or what it was, but this one I think was great. And what I love about it, and I in our notes I called this what did I call this? A treatise on the balance of seriousness and silliness in film. Like this movie is a course in that, because the sequence we're talking about here, mixing up the stiff, the women understand that they misunderstand. They think that they accidentally fed rat poison to the boss. The boss is taken off in an ambulance. He actually had hit his head, and he is very frugal. There is, I think, a hint of a stab at healthcare and the impending healthcare crisis as he assaults the doctor and says, "I know you guys. I'm not going to get roped up in your charges for a couple of X-rays." And he storms out. And so Lily Tomlin's character goes in and steals the wrong body that they think is already dead. So the body, they steal the body, they race around town with the body, they think they're being chased by the cops. It's all very, very confusing and funny. To me, that level of silliness, it doesn't go too far. It's the right level of silliness for the rest of the movie. It doesn't sort of exceed the range of expected dopiness.
It does not. It works perfectly. And I think it's because of the reactions. It's the way that they play it. And that's, I think, why this comedy works so well. They're not playing it, they're not playing the comedy specifically to be funny.
Right.
They're just playing it straight, and it just happens to be written funny. And because of that, it works really well. And some of their lines in this whole course of it, when they realize, when you have Dora Lee looking in the trunk, and she's just like, Judy, do you want to come take a look at this? And just like as they realize, and they're like just laying into vital, like how could you? It works so well because of all of that, and the fact that it ends with the punchline when they get the body back to the hospital and they put it in a wheelchair and park it in a bathroom, and you get the lady who's working there. We got another stiff in the job. I mean, what a great way to punctuate that one.
Oh, it's perfect. I actually thought you were going to do the line, which feels like a trope in a trope, when they're worried about the body, and it's Dora Lee who gets to say, "It's been taken care of," and then hard cut to the stiff in the bathroom, right? Which I think is just it's just perfect. That little
great.
Bit, yeah,
so great.
What's the next trope you uncovered? You revealed.
Right. We have the mysterious figure lurking outside. We get this outside when Judy, Jane Fonda's character, is babysitting Franklin or Frank at his house. That's Dabney Coleman, and there's a mysterious figure lurking outside, and we don't know who it is. We don't know who's watching her. As it turns out, it is her ex-husband, and that leads into a fantastic scene all about M&Ms, which was really great. And but again, it is that trope. Who is this mysterious figure that is following her and watching her from outside? I
think this scene, I'm glad you have this scene, that you picked this scene, because I think this scene highlights something we talked about earlier, which is that Jane Fonda is no stranger to position films, and she has made this. She chose to make this film in a way that wasn't overtly hand wavy, and cast herself as the wide-eyed sort of ingenue character. Right, in this case, the fish out of water, coming out of having been married for 12 years to a guy who had an affair, ran off with his secretary, and she gets a job as a secretary. And then she becomes the one who gets giddy and nervous about saying all of the dirty words. And I find that an amazing turn of casting. I think you could have just as easily given that part to Dolly Parton, because she plays the wide-eyed bit incredibly well. But I think Fonda is top of her game.
This scene also ends up giving her the chance to kind of stand up for herself. And so I can see why this is a role that, she would relish, because she does get to tell her husband off. And this is the scene where you get that, the way that he views the situation is like, well, I was going to ask you back and all this sort of stuff. And he gets on her case, the whole double standards for sleeping with her boss, or presumably, even though she's not. And she's just like, you were sleeping with your secretary. And so it allowed for a lot of that stuff to come out. And so I think I can see why Fonda would be, excited about playing this part with this particular scene in mind. Yeah.
Okay. And we get the wife.
Yes. The old, the wife's home early trope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this case, it works well for the way that the finale of the film needs to play. And it kind of created a fun little situation that I think worked, because it was a tricky moment, because I was like, well, if they're all kind of taking turns babysitting him, how do they not know? And it's 3 days now that the wife has come home.
Yeah.
So there's a little something in there that I think could have been a little cleaner, but still.
Yeah, that he was somehow hiding the fact that he was free.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but their plan had been the whole time they were taking turns kind of rotating to babysit him while he was tied up, right?
Yeah, but they weren't in the room all the time, right? So the way I read it...
They weren't in the room, but I mean, if the wife comes home and they're in the house, I would assume that they would have realized that. And if it is as Dora Lee says, he's been out for 3 days, and that gave him the time he needed to kind of put his affairs in order as far as the kind of the crime he'd been committing, the white collar crime, to kind of clean that up. It was an odd thing to say, okay, well, 3 days, what were you three doing? Because weren't you babysitting him?
Yeah, right. Taking turns, not well. I think a lot of that particular scene or sequence works because of Marion Mercer playing the wife, Missy Hart, who is, I know her as so funny, but I think that's again because of my age. She's been in a lot of stuff that wasn't funny, as far as I know, but I haven't seen it. I have seen It's a Living, and that was a comedy show. And it was from 1980 to 1989, and that's just what I know her from. But I know her from that very, very well. Do you know her?
I mean, looking through her credits, there's little things here and there that I likely saw her in, like an ABC After School special. She was in a couple episodes of Benson. She was in the movie, Oh God, Book 2. I know I saw that.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yep.
So, I mean, there were things that I saw her in, but I don't think it was enough to really lock her in my brain. But her face is familiar.
I'm trying to figure out, I can't remember, was It's a Living a spin-off of something else? The piano player, Sonny, was he off of something else? Did it get spun off? This was kind of the era where all the shows were spin-offs of one another. And I can't quite remember. Maybe that was, he was a piano player for a restaurant at the top of the world. And there's a bevy of waitresses. And anyway, go watch It's a Living. I'm going to find it. Nick at Night.
Yeah.
You're a latchkey kid, right? You come home, everybody's working. You come home, you're doing your thing. You're watching It's a Living. And
watch
probably,
Nickelodeon. I was probably watching
Nickelodeon.
Leave It to Beaver on Nickelodeon.
Leave It to Beaver. 8 is enough.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch A Little 8 is Enough?
Totally.
This was a great talk.
That's where I learned cigarettes were bad.
But in this movie, we learned drugs are okay when you get a joint rolled by your son. Let's talk about Lily Tomlin and marijuana abuse.
You know what was great about this movie? I mean, I've never been a pot smoker, but I don't have anything wrong with people who want to smoke pot. I think it's fine. I like that this
Some
movie
of my best friends are pot smokers.
Some of my best friends. I like that this movie is just like, hey, 3 working women, they're going to light up a joint. And, in 1980, I'm like, that was probably pretty big.
That was big. Yes, it was big.
Yeah. And so I think that it allowed things to just, I don't know. I feel like it's a normalizing sort of thing, just to allow people to just, enjoy themselves, and it's just have fun, getting high and having these whacked out fantasies about killing your boss.
Well, we should talk about that in a minute, but I do want to talk about the son and just their relationship, because I think that highlights that scene. I think is so perfect. It's an onion of perfection. First of all, she is installing a new overhead garage door motor, and that is a big project. And she demonstrates just how capable and savvy she is at doing these kinds of home projects. She doesn't need anything else. Her son is literally holding the ladder and trying to get her to smoke a joint. She succeeds at it. She makes it go up and down, and then she says, "You know what? Slip the joint in my purse." Right? She finally gives in after saying, "No, I don't do that. I don't do that." I think it also that moment demonstrates frankly, that she's a parent who picks her battles, right? Like, she picks the things. She has 4 kids. She's raising them by herself, and she picks the battles that she needs to fight as a parent. And I think that modernizes the view of parenting, right? That she is facing a very hard thing that, and it's changing the definition of what family means. And we get to see that all wrapped up in this little piece. I think it's quite smart.
That paired with the conversation that she has with her boss when she finds out that the other guy got the job, and she's just like, why? And he's like, well, for one, he has a college degree. And she's like, I was here working, building my cred the whole time he was off getting a degree. And then he's like, well, he also is raising a family. And she's like, and I'm raising a family too. Right. And it's like, these are things that he's not seeing, but she is struggling and making ends meet just as much as anyone else. And then it comes out, it's like, well, he's the guy and they want a guy in the part. And that's really kind of, the state of things. And I think it was just, I don't know. I think all of that paired together speaks to how much some people just really, unfortunately, have to struggle unfairly because of the way that their situation, is creating. And it's very frustrating.
The trio, just them together. I think they're really, really good, Andy.
There are a lot of great cinema duos.
Yeah.
I don't know how many fantastic and perfect cinema trios there are, but this has to be one of them.
Is the Three Amigos, are they as good as these 3?
They're up there. They're up there. I mean, that's just, I'd say this is definitely a smarter trio, though.
Yeah, right. But in terms of just building a three-way relationship between these women who didn't really know or appreciate one another and or both, and doing so in a way, bringing them together in a way that is believable and funny and authentic, in a way that I want to see how the 3 of them move forward together, I think this movie does it better than most.
Yeah, and I'm going to use that real quick to just talk about how this film happened. Jane Fonda, she kind of had, as you alluded to, kind of had the idea of doing a story about this, and with her producing partner, Bruce Gilbert, and initially wanted to do kind of a dramatic story about it. She saw Lily Tomlin's one-woman show and was like, oh, she would be perfect. And while she was thinking about that, she got in her car and turned on the radio, and she heard Dolly Parton singing, I think it was 2 Doors Down. And she got the idea, oh, what about Lily Dolly and me as a trio in this drama. And so she hired Patricia Resnick to write the script and wrote a dramatic script, but then realized it needed to not go that route and shifted. And that's when they brought in Colin Higgins to rewrite the script and direct it and kind of bring that comedy. But one of the key things that they wanted to make sure that Colin did when he reworked the script is gave each of these three women a real meaty part. They wanted to make sure that each of the characters were really fleshed out and built their relationship. And I think that is a sign that Colin Higgins really does do with his scripts is create really honest, real characters, whether it's, Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase or Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, or going all the way back to Harold and Maude, or these three. He is creating really real characters. And the fact that you end up getting these three actresses who just happened to inhabit their roles so perfectly and connect to each other in such just beautifully honest ways, it was just a perfection bringing these three together to create the core of this film.
Well, and I think being able to use you already mentioned the reveries, right? The sort of fantasy sequences,
right?
To use those as a way to give each of them agency in their relationship with the boss. Like we've already seen kind of what they look like at work, but to see how to give us a sense inside their heads and see how they think about their boss in their dark times, I think is particularly strong.
Dolly Parton's first film.
Yes.
Out of the gate. Wow. What a screen presence this woman has. Just so much fun to watch, so honest and charismatic and just a joy to watch. And I can see why she got so much adoration and praise for this film because, she really blew me away. Like, I don't think I'd ever actually seen a film with Dolly Parton. I just always, grew up knowing about her. But now having finally seen this, I'm like, now I get it.
She was really, really great. I'm looking for, yes, here we go. Roger Ebert says, it is. He said the movie was pleasant entertainment, and I liked it, despite its uneven qualities and a plot that's almost too preposterous for the material. But of Dolly Parton, he says, she's a natural-born movie star who contained so much energy, so much life, and unstudied natural exuberance that watching her do anything in this movie is a pleasure.
Okay, now you're making him sound like a perv.
Which is exactly what my
Way
wife
to read
said.
into it.
I read that to her and she says, well, that's pervy. That's what I said. God. I said, honey, only I am allowed to look at you that way. The way Roger Ebert looks at Dolly Parton. Anyhow, people were quite fond of her work in this movie. She was delightful and totally believable and seemed to I actually, one of my favorite sequences in the movie is her going to bed with her husband talking about how much grief she's going through because she doesn't understand why nobody likes her. I thought that was so sweet.
So sweet. And just, when you hear Dolly speak about the film and you just hear her speak in general, she is such a positive, kind person anyway, that it felt like so much a part of her character to kind of have that reaction. Her human character, to kind of react that way. It just feels so natural for her. So I just really connected with her.
So Dolly Parton, this was her first movie. Lily Tomlin, this was her third.
This was, yeah. She hadn't done a whole lot, and she was actually really nervous about it because, she had Nashville a few years before, which was very much an ensemble thing, and she, wasn't as, she wasn't kind of carrying it like she is here.
Yeah.
And she was so nervous. And in fact, the first stuff they shot of her was all the stuff where she was interacting with all the animation. And she was so horrified by all the stuff she was doing that she told them after her first day, she's like, if you guys need to replace me, that's fine. I get it. Don't worry. Because it's hard. Like, acting like you're with, cartoon birds sitting on your fingers and stuff. And she was just, horrified. So she said that what she had to do to really kind of get into this and make it work is she had to pretend she was a real secretary being filmed for a documentary. That's mentally how she had to play that game in her head to kind of be the part and make it work.
Sterling Hayden, what fun to see him in here as CSI KFC.
Some form of Colonel Sanders. What is he doing now?
It was great. I thought it was great.
And Dabney Coleman, this is where Jane Fonda kind of saw what he could do and got him to come on Golden Pond as her husband.
I wanted to look at Dabney Coleman. We could talk about more Dabney Coleman movies.
We should, because Dabney Coleman, he was such an 80s actor that is such a part of my childhood. I just grew up watching the man and just pretty much love seeing him on screen.
Absolutely. What was the one with the cassette, video game cassette?
Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger. Yeah. Oh, we got to do that. And War Games. Can we do a little duo?
And the man with the one red shoe.
The man with one red shoe, Andy.
I knew I should have put that on my guilty pleasures list.
We got to do these.
Dragnet. Oh, man. So good.
Okay.
Tootsie.
Young Doctors in Love. Oh, wait. I take it back.
Oh,
I think there's some real headroom in our Dabney Coleman collection. So there you go. I'm in favor of it. If you ever want to do that, I'm in favor of it.
Squeeze in some Dabney Coleman 80s stuff.
That's right.
I know we're kind of getting close to toward the end. I did want to call something out. At the very end of the credits, they do give thanks to the working women of the National Association of Office Workers. It was a special thanks. And I was like, is that a real thing? So it turns out it's an organization that happens to be named 9 to 5. What are the odds?
Yeah.
It's 9 to 5, the National Association of Working Women. It's an organization that's had been around since 1973. And their whole goal was dedicated to improve working conditions and ensuring the rights of women and families in the United States. And so I was like, oh, look at that. It's a real organization, and they are pushing for women's rights, and they're called 9 to 5.
And it was actually a friend of Fonda's who started the organization 9 to 5. And she had heard her talking and says, I heard them talking about their work and they had some great stories. And I've always been attracted to those 1940s films with 3 female stars. And that's kind of where she got the idea to do the movie. So the association came first.
That is cool. I love it.
Charles Fox on the music. Old Charlie Fox.
Great comedy score from the 80s. It works really nicely. I had a great time with it.
Well, it works really nicely. And did you find yourself thinking, God, this guy is using the 9 to 5 theme, or the 9 to 5 theme, the pop song that Dolly Parton fronts, and the score to the movie are inextricably tied together, right? They are just perfect. I don't think I've ever heard those sort of major themes from the pop song used so perfectly in the score and vice versa until maybe, I don't know, man. Do I even want to bring up everything I do? I do it for you. No, I take it back. Forget I said it, everybody. Just know that this one's really good. I found myself sitting down at the piano and plunking around with some of the themes from the other tracks on the soundtrack, and they're so good. Like, you can take any song, any track off of that track, and you can weave it seamlessly into the theme.
Well, and that speaks to also just what a great song Dolly Parton wrote.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, it is such an iconic song that really did become an anthem, like I said, for not just working women, but working people, working stiffs in the 80s. The whole working 9 to 5. And I mean, people still say it. It's, iconic because of the song. It is just an absolute classic.
It won her the Best Country Song, Best Country Vocal Performance Grammys, number 78 on American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Songs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it went platinum too. So it's one of those incredibly popular songs. And it's a hit because Alvin and the Chipmunks covered it.
It would be 3 male squirrels.
Chipmunks. They're chipmunks. It's in the title.
How did so I know that the sequel follow-up reboot has been talked about for decades. Are we ever going to get it?
Colin Higgins had started developing one with Universal. It kind of at the time, Dolly Parton was really excited about it. Jane Fonda wasn't really excited. Colin Higgins kind of, he said his heart really wasn't in it. I think it's hard to, just because it's successful, it's hard to find the right story. And, I know studios definitely always push for more money, but, the creatives behind it couldn't make it work. And over time, Fonda, Tomlin, and Parton have all since expressed interest in a sequel. And, it started being something that they were talking about more and more. And I think that just a couple years ago, it was pretty, they were doing it. And I think they were going to call it 24/7, where these three would return. They were mentors for a new group of women. Rashida Jones and Pat Resnick were attached to write it. And then just last year, Dolly Parton said it's been dropped. So I don't know what happened with all of that. But it does feel like something that, as you said right out of the gate, it feels very relevant today still. And so I don't know why we couldn't see one. But yeah, it's tricky with trying to get all of them to do it. And it could be, Tomlin and Fonda have their TV show. Maybe they're just tied up in that right now. Who knows? But Dolly Parton did do a musical, 2009 on Broadway. It never really took off. And I think it just kind of closed on Broadway and then just started its national tour, which I think it's still doing. I think it's actually in just last year. I think it opened in the West End. So, and then of course, we didn't even mention the TV series, but there was a TV series that ran for, I think 3 seasons, and it was received pretty well at the time. So,
how did it do at award season?
I feel like this is a film now, looking at it, I'm like, this was a really relevant film and it just is really funny. I just don't know, because of the comedy, if people might not have recognized it as well at the time, but it feels like something that should have gotten more award recognition than it did. It had 3 wins, 7 other nominations. At the Oscars, it did get nominated for Best Song. However, it lost to the song Fame from the movie Fame, which, is a pretty popular one. And like the song says, it's going to live forever. So
I see what you did there.
Did you see what I did? This was also the year that Willie Nelson's On the Road Again from the movie Honeysuckle Rose was nominated. So, these 3 songs, Fame, On the Road Again, and 9 to 5, I'm like, those are 3 really iconic songs to kind of come out and have to battle each other. The other 2, I dare you to sing a bar from Out Here on My Own, also from Fame, and People Alone from The Competition. That's what I thought.
Out here on my own. No, that's All by Myself. Damn.
Over at the Golden Globes, Dolly Parton did get nominated for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy, but lost to Sissy Spacek playing a country star, coal miner's daughter. And Dolly Parton did get nominated for Best New Female Star of the Year in a motion picture, but lost to Natasha Kinski from Tess. And the song was nominated again, but also lost to Fame there. As you mentioned, the song did win Best Country Song at the Grammys. Dolly did win Best Female Country Vocal Performance. It did get nominated for Best Score, but lost to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it did get nominated for Song of the Year, but lost to Betty Davis Eyes. The movie, however, this might reflect it a little bit more. It did the song win at the People's Choice Awards. And over at the WGA, Colin Higgins and Patricia Resnick did get nominated for Best Comedy written directly for the screen, but they lost to Private Benjamin.
Private Benjamin's a pretty good film.
It is a good movie. Yeah, it's
been a long time.
I haven't seen it in a long time to know, to be able to say how well it compares, but
tonight,
boy, did I love it at the time.
Let me just say that. Tonight, it does not compare.
Here, here.
Okay, Andy, we got to talk about the numbers. How to do at the box office. Did it clean up? Did it clean up? Tell me it cleaned up for old Colin.
For Colin's second film as writer-director, his budget doubled what he had last time, landing him with $10 million to play with. That is about $31.1 million in today's dollars. The movie opened December 19th, 1980 on a busy holiday weekend opposite Any Which Way You Can, the re-release of The Aristocats, The Formula, The Jazz Singer, Inside Moves, and Seems Like Old Times. This film opened in second place behind Eastwood's orangutan comedy sequel, but this film is the one that held on at the box office, eventually becoming the second highest grossing film of 1980, just behind a little movie called The Empire Strikes Back. And when I say just behind, I mean that this film is second, even though Empire made more than twice what this did at the box office. This film did end up earning $103.3 million, which is about $321.2 million in today's dollars. That is a pretty penny for this movie and gives it an adjusted profit per finished minute of $2.6 million. Another win for Higgins.
You are quite the budgetary relativist, Andy. It's
first, second.
Just behind. It's all in the scale.
It's all relative.
Well, I thought this movie was a fantastic watch. I had a brilliant time with it. It lived up to every bit of my memory of it, and I'm thrilled to hear it sounds like it did just about the same to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a comedy classic that I had not watched and need to watch more often. Yeah. Just fantastic.
Yeah. Did you watch it with your kids? Did you share it with your daughter?
Nope. I knew there was the pot stuff in here, and I was like, I'm not quite ready to jump into that yet. So
I haven't yet, but I immediately walked up to my wife and I said, we have to do this. We have to watch it as a family, because it's just, there are so many things in here that I feel like I want my kids to see, because they're dated, and to see what they're never going to experience some of these situations.
Right.
So
even the fact that most of these people are called secretaries, and I'm like,
yes,
they're not secretaries. Like,
it's not a thing anymore.
This is a role. No, this is like accountants or other people working in the office. It's interesting. That to me was really interesting, that just blanket all the women are called secretaries.
That's right. Fascinating. Well, I think we got to take it to the mat, Andy.
Let's do it.
Over to flickchart.com/the next reel. You'll see all the movies we've talked about on this very show. If you swipe over in the show notes and tap the word Flick Chart, it will take you straight to this movie in the Flick Chart catalog, where you can add it to your own list and see how it stands up against ours.
First up, we have 9 to 5, or, Pete, one of my favorite David Cronenberg movies now, Scanners.
There is no way you can justify picking Scanners in this matchup. There is no conceivable way. It will so dramatically shake my worldview, my ideological perspective of you and your existence in time and space, if you pick freaking Scanners.
Like you picking 2001 over anything that you picked. Just saying.
That was then,
but
Andy.
I will pick 9 to 5. I will pick 9 to 5.
Live in the now, Andy.
I will. Absolutely 9 to 5. I love Scanners, but 9 to 5.
Okay, I'm Scanners.
This is a classic stuff. 9 to 5 are Dead Ringers. Still 9 to 5.
You were saying Dead Ringers?
Yes, 9 to 5 are Dead Ringers.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely Dead Ringers on this one.
You're Dead Ringers?
Psych. No, I'm totally 9 to 5. What are you kidding?
Yeah.
You lunatic.
You're a stinker. 9 to 5 or Creed?
Oh, that's trouble area for me. I'm on the fence, honestly. I could be pushed. Go ahead and push me, and let's see if I feel good about it.
I'm on the fence too. I feel like I'm going to say 9 to 5. I don't know if it's recency, but I think both of these are exceptional films.
I do too. So what I was waiting for is to see if it would make me do the Nick Nolte wiggle from Hulk, and it didn't. I feel good. I would go 9 to 5. I feel good about that. Smart film.
Okay, 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. 9 to 5, or another Colin Higgins film, Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude. Sorry.
I do have to go Harold and Maude here. 9 to 5, or the 2018 Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga, A Star is Born.
A Star is Born, please.
Star is Born. 9 to 5, or Menace to Society from the Hughes brothers.
Menace to Society, please.
9 to 5 from me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. You know what? I would be okay with that, but I want to take it to the mat just in case.
Okay, let's do
All
it.
right. Oh,
Here we go.
1,
1, 2, 3.
Scissors.
Rock.
Godfrey Daniels.
9 to 5 crushes your Menace to Society.
I'm okay with that,
scissors.
but I really am disappointed that I've had one win in like 6 weeks. Maybe more, maybe 10.
I don't know what's going on. And of course, we can't get 2001 to come back up in our
Yeah,
Saturday
it's fine.
matinee
Don't worry
remakes.
about it.
9 to 5, or Stand By Me. Oh, Stand By Me.
Stand by me.
9 to 5, or Delicatessen.
I do like that delicatessen, but I'm going to go 9 to 5.
I feel like I'm going to say Delicatessen, but I'm okay.
I was just going to say the other thing. I was going to say, okay, you can have it. And you know why? It's because I started thinking of the bed.
We're being way too flip-flopping. What is going
on? That's what won me over. You said delicatessen. It took a minute for that to come back, but I'm going to go with that. Delicatessen.
You're going to go with that?
Yeah, unless you change your mind.
I am to 9 to 5 now.
You
we
are?
both changed our minds. Yes.
Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. I'm going to change my mind back.
I
Don't
think
move.
it's because the. Well, now I'm thinking of like the boomerang knife thing.
It's so good. I am going to stick with delicatessen now.
All right, I will too.
Okay.
Before I change my mind again.
Oh, God, I'll tell you,
All
we're
right,
the
Delicatessen
worst.
takes that one. 9 to 5, or Aliens. Aliens for me.
Aliens.
That was a brutal battle that didn't need to be.
It was totally worthless. Is what that was. That whole segment.
Putting 9 to 5 in spot 47.
This, you
It would have
guys,
been fitting if it was spot 95.
I'm telling you, this is why we put chapters in our show. You can skip right by this.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. Say that again. It's 47?
47. 47 out of 435. So that's at an 89% on our chart.
All right. That's not so bad.
Not so bad at all.
How to do on your personal chart.
This definitely shot up there, and I would say it's a new comedy favorite. I think that it's just super smart and a lot of fun. It ended up in spot 250 out of 4276 on my chart, which is a 94%.
Ooh, that's really good.
Really good.
I'm stalling for a minute because I haven't ranked it yet. It just never hit my chart.
How about that, Dolly?
God, telling you.
So while you're ranking, something else that I have to point out that happens in this film that I forgot how much I love, and I don't know if it happens that much in films today, and maybe it does, but I feel like it's a trope, I don't know, that maybe began in the 70s of putting fake end supers as to where are they now at the end of movies. And I know we've talked about this with some other movies on our show. I just can't remember what they are. But I have always loved that when movies give you that little fake, what's happening now bit. It's cute. It's simple, it's fun, and especially in comedies like this, it's a great way to kind of just have last little laughs. And it worked well.
I
here.
wonder if there's a connection between movies that have those final title cards and sequels, because I like to think in my head when I see those final title cards that this movie is done. This is the end of the experience. I get to just enjoy it, and I don't need to see a sequel. I wonder how many movies have sequels that have these title cards. My hunch is it's a small number.
Well, but it's almost like they have closed the chapter because then you'd have to do the sequel, but it would still have to be based kind of on that information, which is future information not related to your movie. Like if they bring Dabney Coleman back, did he survive getting kidnapped by the Amazonian tribe? How it ends up kind of putting them in a bit more of a pickle for the sequel.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I will tell you my ranking of this very film came out at 80 out of 1430, which is a 94%.
I like it.
So that's pretty good too, huh?
94%?
Yeah.
So we're both at 94%.
That's right. So I did good and
crazy.
you did good. We both did good.
We both did good.
So now if I'm going to go by the algorithm.
So you and I, Dimitri. So you're fine and I'm fine. So I guess you'd say we're both fine.
There are 4 Lugas. If I'm going by the algorithm, then this film should get a 4.5 star over at letterboxd.com/thenextreel. I'm going to throw caution to the wind, Andy. For me, this is a 5-star movie. It's 5 stars, and it's actually not a heart. It's a cow heart with like 6 chambers. It's the heart of a bison. It's the heart that is so strong that scientists can actually open it up on the side of a cow and watch food being digested. It's in the stomach. That's what it is. They can watch blood coursing through it. It's so strong. That's a big heart.
Yeah, I mean, a cow's 4-chambered heart, just like
it's like
us.
6-chambered heart is what cows have. I'm sure. Maybe 8. I've heard
like
as high as 8.
How many stomachs?
I think cows are like computers, the computer cores. You could just upgrade them. It actually has 12. I want a 12-core cow.
Oh, cows have 4 stomachs. Maybe that's where you're thinking of that expansion with cow numbers.
I guarantee you that I was thinking of stomachs and used heart because of stupid Letterboxd. And now what I would like to tell you is this is a 5-star 4-chambered stomach.
Off the rails, folks. That's where we are.
We are the Golden Globes of movie podcasts, everybody.
Oh, man. Well, this is a 5-star...
and a 4-chambered stomach.
4-chambered stomach from me as well. I love this movie and absolutely want to add this to my watch more often list, and definitely watch it with my wife, introduce my kids to it, make everybody watch this because it's so good.
It's great. That's great. I can't wait. We're going to watch this and Room back to back because I want it to be very meta. Because I'll be locking them in a tough shed to do it.
Jeez.
All right. What are we doing next time?
All right, everybody. So next week we are finishing our Colin Higgins series, sadly, because he passed away a little while after finishing his last film, which is another Dolly Parton film. Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh, Andy, you haven't seen this either.
I've started.
Oh.
I've started watching it.
Okay.
I have not finished it, but I'm enjoying it so
Just
far.
tell me.
Looking forward to.
Have you chuckled yet?
I've chuckled and I've been enjoying it.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. That's positive.
I wasn't expecting Burt Reynolds to sing, but there it was.
It's in there.
It is.
Yeah.
It certainly is.
All right. Well, I'm very excited about that one. That's going to be great. And as I think you know, Andy, when the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always do it.
Amazon doeth again. This time, I was not able to go to a 1-star. I went to a 2-star. I tried to go to the very bottom, and then I went to a 2-star anyway. Do you want to climb up, or do you want me to sink you? I will sink. I will sink you.
Let's sink it.
All right. 9 to 5. Enough time to kidnap, torture, and blackmail while making coffee. The 2-star from 2017. The first time I watched it, I cringed. The second time, which was 20-some years later, I was astounded. Although I have always enjoyed Dolly Parton, withstood Jane Fonda and Edith Ann. The premise of this story is, well, extremely violent and not really funny at all. 3 women who couldn't figure out any other way to improve their careers than to torture their boss. Kind of like the Dixie Chicks. Earl had to die. Justification.
I had to die.
Earl had to die.
Oh.
I imagine Werner listens to a lot of Dixie Chicks, is the thing.
I feel like
I think he's
does.
big on Dixie Chicks. And early Dolly Parton. Probably some Tanya Tucker. You were
He
saying?
probably is listening to her while he's doing his casting, going, "Oh,
Yeah.
I should cast her."
I should totally cast Dolly Parton. As soon as I finish this Mandalorian BS.
With his puppet.
Cowards.
Cowards.
What do you got?
All right. Well, I've got a 1 star. I went down and I have Tyman Luger is the person who said 1 star. Do not recommend. I know this is a movie from the 70s, but I was cringing throughout the entire movie. Men back then were beyond sexist. Ugh. Do not recommend. The comments, of course, your review would make sense if the sexist man was the hero of the movie, but since he is clearly the antagonist, I'm wondering how far into the movie you watched. And then the next person said, that's the point of the movie. And then the third person said, LOL to that person. Perfect post. LOL.
So many OLs. Ugh. That's the Maluga of Amazon Plus.
Full circle.
Thanks, Amazon. It's hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We are highlighting adaptations from Season 9 over at our Originals page, thenextreel.com/originals. That's the site where listeners can purchase the source material for all of our adapted film discussions.
We had a big Robin Hood series this season, looking at 9 different versions on screen. Many were likely adapted from Howard Pyle's The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, including Douglas Fairbanks in Robin Hood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and the 1991 Robin Hood, and Ridley Scott's Robin Hood.
Robin and Marian was specifically based on the ballad The Jest of Robin Hood.
And we really don't have too much to say about Robin and the Seven Hoods.
We talked Dead Ringers for our David Cronenberg series adapted from Barry Wood and Jack Geislin's novel Twins.
Have you checked out that show?
You know, I haven't, but I've heard great things.
2 comedies from our Steve Martin series were adaptations, Pennies from Heaven from the BBC series, and The Lonely Guy from the book by Bruce J. Friedman.
The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas was part of our Colin Higgins series, adapted from the Broadway musical.
Spike Lee brought us Black Klansman from Ron Stallworth's memoir.
And we looked at a trio of John le Carre adaptations, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, The Little Drummer Girl, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Plus, all 3 movies in our Agnieszka Holland series were based on books, Europa, In Darkness, and Spore.
La Cage aux Folles and its remake The Birdcage both came from Jean Poiret's original play.
We also talked about Arsenic and Old Lace and Charade in our Cary Grant series.
All of these were based on other material, and it is all available on our Originals page, thenextreel.com/originals. Every book purchased supports the podcast.
Get the full list of adaptations we've covered and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.